Hello and welcome to another episode of Session Zero One-on-One Shots. I am your host, Lincoln L. Hayes, bringing back one of my faves from Season 1, because he's got a podcast too that I was recently on as of this recording, so you should check that out when you can. It is called The Floor is Dungeon! And my guest is... You shush! I haven't introduced you yet. You be quiet over there. You heard him just now. You can't forget his voice. He's back, the Pun-geon Master himself, and my old roommate. Welcome back, Alexander Stine. Hello, sir.
Thank you so much, Lincoln, for having me on the one-on-one shots on Session Zero.
Hell yeah, man. I felt it was
Kenny
only...
G. Jackson!
If you've listened to my episode, mine and Pat Marran's episode, that will make sense. Otherwise, what? So, Steiner, you were on Season 1 a handful of times. Fantastic guest. Favorite appearance when you tried to pull out the sword and you broke it. Fucking phenomenal. Failed that strength check. Or overly succeeded, depending on how you look at things.
Yeah. I threw that sword out when I moved from my old apartment to the new one. And I never thought I would have the dilemma of how to properly dispose of a sword in New York City.
It's tricky. I had some swords that I had to get rid of too, and I was like, do I just put these in the trash? I guess.
Yeah.
I think I tried to put it in the recycling. It's metal. Maybe do something with that. Anyway,
recycle
enough
that
about
cold
how dumb
hard
we
steel.
are. Enough about how dumb we are with swords. Let's talk about your podcast. The Floor is Dungeon. How did the idea for the podcast come about?
So, my boy Murray, who started the Missing Sock Podcast Network, we've known each other for quite some time. We started off doing Shakespeare together. He and I, I wanted to play D&D real bad. He and a handful of other people were in the home game. And he's been podcasting for a really long time. He's like, Stine, do a D&D podcast. I'm like, all right. And then it just never happened. And then finally he kept like pushing and pushing and pushing. He's like, all right, now's the time. You got to do it. I was like, you're right. You know, I'm sitting at home. It's the pandemic. Let's figure it out. Let's do it. But the thing is that I didn't want to do just like a campaign like everybody else does.
Right.
So I originally was going to call it Pun-geon Brawl because, you know, that's just a pun on Dungeon Crawl. And I am the Pun-geon Master. But I didn't really know like what the format would be. And it wasn't until I looked at my 30-sided die that I've had for over 20 years that I was like, wait a minute, how do I incorporate this into this? So I was like, okay, hold on. I'm going to do a one-shot every single month, and let's work that in. 30 days in a month. Okay, so let's do that for character creation. So let's say like what happened this day in history. And so like the first episode was really just like an experiment to see if it would work. And it did. And then I was like, okay, so now how do I write this fucking thing? Well, why not go back to the month thing? And I just like scoured the month of October. I was like, I can use the elements to create a one shot. And that's basically that's how it came together. And Murray was not a fan of Pun-geon Brawl. Just the word Pun-geon, when it's spelled out, looks weird.
I remember when you sent it to me for your title the first time you came on, and I was like, can you not spell dungeon? What the hell are you doing? And then I said it wrong, and you're like, no, it's Pun-geon. And I was like, oh, yeah, didn't get that.
Apparently puns are like the lowest form of comedy, but understanding puns is the highest form of comedy. So I understand why you didn't get it.
This has been a great episode. Thanks for coming on, Steiner. And we're done. Douche. All right. So why do you have a 30-sided die?
I just found it in a game store when I was playing Magic the Gathering back in my youth, and I just thought it was so interesting. I was like, a 30-sided die? Why? I'm buying it. And it was like just like in the bottom of a big thing of dice. And it was big and cool. Yeah. I was like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Because there's a 20 and there's 100. I didn't know there was anything in between.
There's a 22 also. There's 60. There's a bunch of different sizes. Yeah.
Wow. The things you learn talking to Steiner. All right, so...
Might be even a 24. Who knows?
Hey, previously on 24. So you and Murray chatting it up. You come up with the idea for this show. Who's your first guest? How do you get people on the show? What's your process?
So the first guests were actually Alex Murray and Adam Phillips. Adam was my old roommate, also part of the home game. And they have a podcast together called Child's Play, where they review Kids Bop albums.
Yes.
It's torture for them and hilarious. Everyone should check out Child's Play. So they were my first two guests on the show. And then after that, like, I just started bringing in other people from the podcast network, other people that I've played D&D with a lot over the past few years. And that was sort of like my checklist. I was like, I need to get through everyone I play with regularly and other people who play D&D on the podcast network. After I do that, I'm going to open up the doors to other people, because then I'll have like a solid foundation of episodes that you can go back and listen to, get people like excited to be on the show. And that's eventually when I got to you. I was like, well, Lincoln's had me on his show a few times. I got to get him on mine, baby.
Heck yeah. So he asked me and a friend of the show, previous guest, Patrick Marran, to come on and do the month of June, which was a delight. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So how did you first get associated with the Missing Sock Network? Is it just through Murray?
That's, just something he's been wanting to start a podcast network for a very long time. And during the quarantine, a lot of people had opportunities to explore different sort of career pathways or dreams that they've had because they had a lot more free time. That's something that he did. And he just wanted to bring in a bunch of people that he knows are like good performers, good comedians, good personalities, whatever, who have a penchant for talking too much. And that's kind of how things got started there, you know? So we all came up with our different show ideas, and then we all launched them basically at the same time. And right now there's like 8 or 9 shows, I think, on the network.
That's fantastic. And
are
you the only D&D podcast, or I feel like there might be a couple?
I'm the only D&D podcast, but as you do with a network or whatever, a podcast, you want to do exclusive Patreon content. So we do these things called One Sock Adventures, where we turn ourselves into D&D characters. Like you turned yourself into a D&D character. You're even referencing your sheet when we did our character building episode. For sure. So I made myself a Psy Warrior fighter with the axe throwing, or with the thrown weapon fighting style, because I'm an axe throwing instructor, like on the side, and I love Star Wars. So I was like, that works.
Check and check.
Yeah. And actually, the thrown weapon fighting style fucking owns. It's like, because you get 2 extra points of damage anytime you throw a weapon and hit.
Wow.
So
okay. Sign me up.
I'm throwing like 3 axes in one turn, and then, action surge, 2 more axes. So if I hit with all of those, that's an extra 10 points of damage automatically,
even if you duff
on top of everything else.
All right, so walk us through the production of an episode, from getting your guests to scheduling the first episode, because you record 2 episodes a month, and then you edit, and then you also write a brand new one-shot every month, which I am insanely jealous of.
Yeah, the writing of the one-shot is the hardest part of it, for sure. But so I try to get my guests locked in about a month before. It's 2 recording sessions. It's a bi-weekly podcast, because I don't know what the characters are going to be. So I don't write the one shot because I want to know who the characters are and what they can do.
Absolutely.
Because I want to tailor,
because it is so specific to the month. Even, you present the trivia and whatnot to the panelists, the players, but you don't know what they're going to choose. You didn't know I was going to go with Kenny G, of all people, in the month of June.
No, absolutely not. So I want to keep that roll of the dice randomness that thing that we love so much about Dungeons and Dragons in as many aspects as I can. So you get a random criteria for your character. You get random magic items based on how well you do in the Dice Q trivia show, or if you land on a holiday double. And then you build whatever you choose to. And then from there, I really go through every single day of the month and I create notes. I actually have my notes somewhere for July. Okay, it doesn't matter. But it's like broken down by day, all the events, all the birthdays. And I skim through that. And I usually try to find either an author or like a famous story, or, like explorers are really good, because I want to find a story to be able to use as like a backbone to build the thing around. Once you get that, you can sort of plug and play different elements from the month into it. And see, so it's just like really random. You just like have to be constantly looking at your notes for different like things that can shove you off into different aspects. I also like to take crazy right-wing nut jobs and use them as my big bad evil people.
Yeah.
I find that works well as motivation, gives some wish fulfillment to my players. I'll say myself, to be honest. For
sure. So how far in advance do you start looking at the calendar of like, all right, so we're recording in July, a couple days after your birthday. Happy belated. Are you already looking at August? Or are you just working on episode 2 of July now?
I'm just working on episode 2 of July right now. Right. We're recording it on Tuesday and it's a Thursday. So I've got like 4 days to write this thing essentially. And normally that's what happens. I don't want to procrastinate, but I end up procrastinating just a little bit. It normally gets churned out in the last like 2 days. I'll get the backbone for the story, basically like to outline my 3 acts. I don't want to have too many encounters. I think because I want to limit it to 3 hours. So normally my script is about 7 or 8 pages long. It's not a traditional game of D&D, Right. Like, first of all, it's a one-shot. Like, if you're expecting to, like, find a treasure chest filled with gold pieces, that's pointless. We're not going shopping at any time in this adventure.
Who needs gold in a one-shot?
Yeah, exactly. Unless, like, I specifically make it a part of the story. It's sort of designed to be railroaded. I hate to do that, but it's just a part of it also being a show. We can't get too far off track or we're never going to get to the end. And, I don't know if you've ever played in a one shot, just like a regular one shot that's not being recorded. If it goes off the track, it's like people got work in the morning, we got to end at some point, So I try to like really make sure that the players know, let's stick to the story as best we can. I want you to have freedom to do what you want, but please don't take it too far off the rails if you can.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be really difficult. I'm actually trying to write some one-shots for this show to do at some point. And I play tested one of them and it's way too long. Yeah, I have too many encounters. There's too much. I'm used to the campaign arc method of writing, or like I'm going to write, this big adventure, and writing one-shots is hard.
Yeah, I mean, like, I try to find a moment where I can just wrest control of the entire story arc. And that's normally where I will put, like, the break, the intermission. It might be, like, an explosion, which happened with you guys, spoiler alert. Explosions are great. They just change everything. Also, or, like, the introduction of a mysterious figure, things like that are able to, or just the end of like a certain encounter where, like for instance, in our Jungle Lovecraft episode, my 2 players, Max and Eliza, they played a game of Pelota, which is like an internal game in the Hidden Shrine of Tomoakan module. So we had played that module, and the players had completely skipped over Pelota.
Right.
It's like, and in the module itself, like in Tales from the Yawning Portal, it's like 2 full pages. Like, it's a big fucking thing. And I had spent so much time preparing this. They just skipped over. I was like, you sure you don't want to play it? They're like, no. Granted, they were dying from poison at that time, but yeah, exactly. So I was like,
we're dying. We should play a game real quick.
Well, they could have gotten a thing called the eagle whistle, which allows you to fly so long as you keep blowing into it.
I mean, give that to Kenny G. Jackson. He taught himself to inward breathe or whatever he does. Yeah.
So basically, like, they're playing this game that is, it's like prophesized that two heroes will show up and they'll be able to beat this game that no one has been able to beat for like an eon. They show up, they win, and now they're just heroes of the city. And that's a perfect time to say, okay, we're taking a break. And then after the break, I can put them wherever I want. I don't have to like, it's the, you know, you come back from commercial break and you see like the office building, the camera sort of pushes in towards it, and then you see the characters inside. So a break is also a good time to like take people wherever you want without their permission.
Yeah. You put us in a limo and you drove us across town. Yeah. That's genius.
Yeah. And then I blew you up and then I had you be arrested, or not arrested, kidnapped, essentially. Yeah.
It was wild, guys. Check it out. What has the response been to the show, and what are your plans moving forward?
So I think that the response so far has been pretty good. We don't advertise at all. The people that do listen to it seem to be enjoying themselves. I think one of the things that's nice about it is that you don't have to like commit to a whole campaign. So if you get like a few episodes behind, you're not going to be like, oh no, I have to go back and like that's going to be 12 hours. Like, nothing against Critical Role, but I feel that way when I miss, you know, week after week. I'm like, I got to go back and like listen to the entire thing so I know what's up. You don't have to do that with my podcast. You can jump in whenever you want. You don't even have to listen to the character building episodes if you don't want to. You just want a quick one shot, bam, done.
Right.
You should.
It helps, obviously. So you're like, why is Lincoln talking like Mayor Quimby? You have to listen to the first one.
Right, exactly. So I think the response has been really good. Again, we don't really advertise. Like, I don't come from like a background where people are like, he's a big nerd guy. So I'm trying to like muscle my way into the sort of nerd community and the like D&D Twitter sphere. I have a few friends that are like involved in that world, and I'm hoping that to get them involved in TFIT at some point and cross-pollinate with other D&D podcasts and like take two people from this show and take two people from this show. And hopefully that'll spread and people will be like, yeah, we got to do TFID, you know, at some point. So this is just laying the foundation of hopefully something that'll grow.
For sure. Feel free to harvest anyone you'd like from Session Zero. A community.
I already got you, Pat. Yeah.
That's right. All right.
Wait, have you had Matt Mercer and Brendan Lee Mulligan on Session Zero yet?
Oh, yeah. Twice?
Both of them twice? Okay, cool. Yeah. So I'll harvest them and then we'll be good to go.
Now you're talking. I have not. That is a blatant lie.
Yeah,
All right. All right. Steiner, I got another question for you. And this one
yes, sir,
is very serious.
Okay.
Which have been some of your favorite moments from the show so far, and why were they in the episode with Patrick and me? A kid, in general.
Very serious. Very serious. Well, let's see here. They're like I said, I try to railroad the players a little bit, but you always get surprised at what people are going to do no matter what. So favorite versus surprising. Okay, let me do surprising first, and I'll start off with you guys. I was surprised that you wouldn't use your fire breath that I gave you. I was like, they're going to go in and just smoke these motherfuckers. And you're like, no, I'm saving it. I'm like, for what?
That was the question. What are we saving it for? I don't know. I'm going to save it for Meryl Streep up on stage. And then didn't even end up using it.
You know what I think the problem was for me, and the way I could have solved that is by telling you it only lasts for 10 minutes. Instead, I told you it lasted for an hour. And by giving you that option of holding on to it for a longer amount of time, you wanted to hold on to it for a longer
Well, we thought we were going to use it against the boss because we're like, surely we'll fight him in an hour. But no, you put us in a car and you took us away, and then we got somewhat of a short rest. It's like, well, fuck.
You never know. Well, you were coming off of a pretty hardcore narcotic, so
that's true.
I always like when people try to talk their way out of situations.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they end up working. Most of the times they don't. That was a really good thing that happened in our Star Wars Hall of May special, is that one of our characters charmed, I guess. Did he charm him? He charmed David Borean as the angel. And he was like, how long is it going to take us to get from point A to point B? I was like, it's going to take you 10 minutes longer than charm person last. You know?
How long's charm person? 10 minutes? It's 11 minutes from here. Damn it.
Yeah, exactly. So after, or like whatever it was, he like charmed this person, or he charmed this angel. So I love when things like that happen, and I get surprised, but then I get to flip it around on them. Just because it's ridiculous. They had to fight an angel at some point. What else? I don't know. I mean, like, in the very first episode, Murray and Adam were taking a long time to go into the big, like, carnival tent where the bad stuff was going to happen, because they were scared. And they're like, wow, if there was, like, a big god entity up there, I'd be really pissed off if I were him. For not going into the tent. I was like, yeah, that's when you notice that the road turns to lava.
We have to run now.
Yeah, now we got to go
just
inside.
Go in. Just get in there, guys. Come on.
So, yeah, those are just a handful of times. I just want everybody to have fun, and when other people are having fun, I'm having fun, and hopefully when we're all having fun, the audience is having fun. So
there you go. Follow up to that.
Yeah.
As a seasoned dungeon master, prior to the show, how is running a one-shot for a podcast different than running it for the campaign? Other than the things we've talked about, obviously, the breadth and storytelling, that kind of thing. Sitting in the chair doing it, how does it feel different than when you're sitting at a table or sitting on Zoom playing with friends?
Yeah, typically when we play just normally, we're a lot more tactical, like we're using a virtual tabletop or we're using a battle mat and miniatures. So combat actually, while it can be a little bit of a slog on the show, it's a lot more of a slog in actual like real play. Plus, I only have two players, as opposed to like a table of 5 or 6 or 7 people. That being the case, it's really a lot easier for 2 people to plan and make decisions together.
Right.
When you're sitting at a table with a whole big group, planning can take an entire session.
It's the worst.
And inevitably, those plans go to shit anyways. But
yeah.
I mean, maybe not always, but
for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Because, you're still relying on dice rolls. But with 2 people, they're a lot more decisive, which is really nice. I do theater of the mind for the players, but I have a battle mat in front of me, so I can keep track of where everyone is, because that still allows you to be somewhat tactical. If you took like the protection fighting style, you want to know that you're next to your party member so you can impose disadvantage with your reaction. Things like that, flanking, things like that. But if the players themselves can't see the actual map, they make decisions a whole lot quicker. They just say, I want to go to this place. Can I get there? And I say yes or no. Rather than being like, but what if I go left? What if I go right? Yeah.
There's a lot less hemming and hawing. It's like, is he close enough to me? Great, I'm going to hit him. Or how far away are they? Great, I can hit him with this. Yeah. Boom, do it.
How many people can I get in a 20-foot radius if I drop like a fireball or something like that? It's like, you can get 5.
Great, I'm doing it. Boom. Great, moving on. Next turn.
Yeah. So that's a big difference in like playing with people at the table and also doing like a podcast. And also with campaigns, like I want to sandbox it up as much as possible. Like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? You tell me. And then one of my favorite parts about DMing is just sitting back and letting the players play. The less I talk usually, the better when I'm at a table. On the podcast, I find I talk a lot, which is fine.
I feel like that's the nature of one-shots, though. Like you said, it is a little railroady, but at the same time, it's really 3 set pieces with some role playing in between. You tell us the story. We're at a place.
Yeah.
Set piece break. Introduce a character. New set piece. Combat.
Yeah.
And that's usually the end.
Yeah, or exploration. I like the 3 pillars: exploration, role play, and combat. Like, you gotta roll initiative at some point, at least once. Sometimes it happened twice, but every now and then, that's a decision for the players to make. Like, they could do a thing where they could get out of it without initiative, but they end up doing something. Like in the boy experience, one of my players insulted an NPC, and she says, "And I want to make that a vicious mockery." I was like, Well, then we're rolling initiative.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because you just cast a spell that hurts somebody."
That's a spell attack.
Yeah. She's like, "But that doesn't happen in my other game." I was like, "Oh, no.
You're at my house
my
now,
other
Grandma.
game." That's right.
Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Steiner,
To lay down the law.
This has been a delightful conversation. I have one last question for you. Bonus question time.
Sure.
And it's about Magic the Gathering. This is something that I learned about you from your podcast, that you actually won a scholarship in your youth for playing Magic. How did that come about?
Close. Almost won. I was one place off. I got second place in a tournament called the Junior Super Series back in, I want to say 99 or 2000. I think it was 2000. First place got $1,000 scholarship and a booster box of cards. Second place got a booster box, no scholarship, but both of us got to go to nationals to compete. So I was basically one of the top 100 players up to age 15 in the country that year.
Damn.
Which was super cool. Yeah. Cause I went to the wide world of sports at Disney World with my mom cause I'm 15. I'm not going to travel there by myself.
Right.
And at the same time, the World Championship was going on there as well. So all the professional, Magic the Gathering players were there. I got some cards signed by the artists.
Cool.
And yeah, I got my ass handed to me at the Nationals, which sucked, but I brought what's called a rogue deck. A rogue deck is a deck that isn't printed in any of the publications or online or anything like that. It's something that you make yourself, and I was like, cool, no one's going to know what this deck is, so no one will have prepared for it.
Right.
It wasn't as good as I thought it was, unfortunately. It didn't play as well at Nationals, but whatever.
Bummer.
Still fucking cool to go.
For sure.
Cool story.
Yeah, right? You can still dine out on that story. All right. Thank you so much for being here, Steiner. Give us your plugs. Give us the socials for the show and for you if folks want to find you out there on the interwebs.
Absolutely. So you can find my podcast, The Floor is Dungeon, on all of your podcatchers. And if you want to follow the show on social media, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all at Dungeon Floor. And if you want to follow me personally, I'm on Twitter at Alexander Stine, and that's with the I-N-E, like stone, but with an I. Instagram, I'm at The Steiner, like the stoner. I wish I had both, just the Steiner, but what can you do? And check me out on IMDb, everybody. Get my star meter up.
You can find him on IMDb with several appearances on this very show, including this episode. All right, and you guys know me, Lincoln L. Hayes, on all the socials. You can follow the show on Instagram at Session0D&D Show, and you can find all of my stuff and this show on my website, lincolnlhayes.com/Session0. Steiner, always a pleasure. Happy belated, and I can't wait.
Thanks, brother.
Maybe someday, play some D&D with you in person.
And I can squeeze ya.
Squeezies. We do have a standing date to go to Pat Marran's bar at some point. But it's summertime and it's hot and we're all busy. All right. Thank you, Steiner, for being here. Everybody check out Flora's Dungeon. It's a lot of fun. and get out there and play some D&D, y'all. Bye!